Join us on this week's podcast as we talk about all the things that we missed last week with Gatland going. The under-20s, we look ahead to the Island game this week, and we review a pretty mediocre weekend of rugby in the URC. Let's get on with it. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the WRRAP podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me as always is Jamie, Nick and Harley. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good evening.
I thought we'd knocked something on the head last week, boys. I thought we'd found the golden pail last week because our figures after last week's show went absolutely through the roof. And then Gatland resigned at lunchtime and everything fell flat on his face the day after. So I don't think this week's going to go the same way. I don't envisage any massive turnarounds through this week. So did we all enjoy the merry-go-round that Welsh Rugby was last week? Anybody not enjoy last week?
It's a bit sad though, isn't it? Like how it's turned out. I mean, I'm not happy that Gatland's lost his job, but it was the right decision. We'll talk about it in a bit. A change had to be made. It's just sad because I spoke about this with Gavin last night on the Dragon's Lair. Even though the success he achieved in his first spell was unprecedented for Wales, he leaves now as Wales's best and worst coach simultaneously. And it's really weird how that's turned out. And I do feel it has slightly blemished his reputation, his legacy, this second spell. But I think something had to be done because 14 defeats in a row, no international coach should survive that, despite what Gatland has done. Because two things can be true at the same time. Yes, you can say, well, the problems are all down to Gatland. Of course, they're not, and that point's been hammered home to death. But ultimately, Gatland is head coach. And he is responsible for results. He's responsible for the tactics. He's responsible for his bonkers selections and his non-selections, which Sheratt has corrected. So sad, really, I think, but the right decision has been made, I think.
The bit I liked about last week was when they'd haul on like ex-professionals and all of that kind of stuff and go, and they'd have the microphone in front of them and they go, so Gatland's gone. And I go, yes, he's gone. And there'd be these really awkward bits where they're like, what do you want me to say? Yeah, Gatland's gone. He's gone. And it was really, especially on some of the non-mainstream sites where they were just like, get somebody on the phone who sounds like they used to be a Welsh professional and get a reaction off Gatland. So it was that's the bit I enjoyed of last week, seeing people on English news channels mainly having no idea at all about how to talk about Welsh rugby. It was quite fun. Right, let's do this week then, James. Let's do news desk. Let's start off with all of that.
Yeah, so obviously, as we just talked about there, it feels like all news now, doesn't it? Because this broke last Tuesday after we recorded the pod on the Monday night. The WRU confirmed last week that Warren Gatland has left by mutual consent. 14 losses in a row, 6 victories in 26 tests. So for context, that's a win percentage of just 23%. Wales have, of course, slumped to the lowest position of 12th in the world rankings. We're now behind Georgia. So Gatland's gone. Who's come in? Cardiff head coach Matt Sheratt has come in. He's going to take over as interim head coach for the remaining 3 games of the Six Nations. One of the first things he did was to call up Max Llewellyn, Gareth Anscombe and Jared Evans. I think we'll all agree that Llewellyn and Anscombe should have been in the squad in the first place. So that's a good move. Rob Howley, he's gone. Well, when I say gone, he's still with the WRU. He remains under contract with the WRU, but he will not be part of the coaching staff for the remaining 3 games. When he returned to the WRU, he took on special responsibilities, didn't he, with the age grade pathway system. So it would appear he's sticking around to fulfill those responsibilities. And I believe he's doing some work with the Wales under-20s as well, isn't he? So there's been a fair bit of change. Today, on Monday, T. Rhys Thomas has come in. He's joining Wales's backroom staff as a skills coach for the remainder of the Six Nations. Obviously, Sheratt has worked with him. Cardiff is all feeling a little bit Cardiff heavy, but that's understandable. Thomas will have a responsibility for forward skills alongside forwards coach Jonathan Humphreys, and he'll be working with scrum specialist Adam Jones. So yeah, there's been a fair bit of change in the last week, a lot of comings and goings. Very interesting appointment actually, isn't it, T. Thomas? I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Jockey was going to bring in someone he worked with on his own. I thought it'd be more of an attack type person, similar to how he sets up at Cardiff, where he has like a sort of attacking skills coach, and then he runs the attack himself. But having the forward skills, I think I'm personally delighted, because at least hopefully now these players are going to have a completely different voice to whatever they're being told how to not arrive at rucks for. So I'm excited. T. Reece Thomas, very widely respected at Cardiff. A lot of people were quite sad when he left a couple of years ago. So, and again, I think there's a lot of things going on about it being very Cardiff heavy, which, let's be fair, Jockey has 3 games to turn this around. So it's what, 12 to 16 coaching sessions at most. I try and get pull something out with ours. So yeah, the fact he's bringing in players he knows, coaches he knows, and people who will have had some sort of system together, and then just building on that, because it's probably a lot easier to get, I don't know, say a Tom Rogers to play in a system with a former Cardiff backline who've all played the same plays than it is to try and build something completely new.
I think it does ask the question, though, about John Humphrey's long-term position, because we've got a interim scrum coach on secondment from Harlequins. We've now got a forward skills coach from Gloucester. What does that leave John Humphreys doing?
Line out.
Yeah, line out and aggression. Neither of which have fired so far. We'll come on to the future in a minute, but just on the changes that have been made, I wasn't expecting him to make many changes. It's in coaches sort of thing. I thought he'd just go in, sit there for this is what I said on the group chat. He's in an awkward position where it's almost a no win, a no loss, but then there's a no win. Do you know what I mean? Jamie agrees it's a no lose situation. There's no expectations. There's no real kind of pressure on him. He can just go and kind of do what he wants. And I'm thinking, well, where's the carrot in front of him to go and do something other than his reputation? And he's got a sound reputation at Cardiff, and he's building slowly at Cardiff.
Yeah,
I think that is the one thing, Harley, that he has taken a while to build the side into the way he wants to. So he isn't going to do that in Wales, because he's not going to be there for forever. But yeah, it just, I don't know, as a coach, somebody says you guys go coach a national side, you're going to go, yeah, cool, of course I will, yeah, I'll take that, that's not a problem at all, But then you sit back and you think, why? What you get out of it? And I can't see what he can get out of it that's going to be a massive positive.
It's the opportunity, isn't it? And let's face it, this is a no-lose situation for Sheratt, right? For 2 reasons. So nobody expects Wales to win these remaining games now. So he's under no pressure at all. If we do lose, that's fine, because nobody's expecting it. However, if we actually play decent rugby, because let's be honest, Wales have been borderline unwatchable for a little while now. If he gets the attack clicking, and who knows, dare I say, if we do actually win a game, his reputation is going to rocket. So it's no lose for Sheratt, because nobody's expecting a win, but we like to see improvement. And if he does win, that's brilliant. So this is no lose. And of course he's going to take it. He said himself, I couldn't say no. It's a fantastic opportunity for him to put his name out there, isn't it?
And surely coaches are ambitious if they've got it worth their salt. Like any player, they want to coach at the highest level. And he's having an opportunity in a very positive way to try that. So I think there's you can't lose.
Harley, he's your boy. So didn't you talk to him on the pod last year, or did that one happen? Or did it not?
We
you
spoke
did.
with him actually around about this time last year. Yeah, maybe dig out the file and we'll see if we can get that boosted. Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is that everyone agreed that the vibes needed. I mean, purely, never mind the technical things. I mean, the one thing everyone says about Jockey is he's a wonderful technical coach. That's what basically any other coach or player who's worked under him or with him says. You know, he's a wonderful technical coach, and the way he gets details across is very, very good. But the thing he did really well with Cardiff was we were going through an absolute cesspit of a time. You know, it could have been really easy for us to be really negative about it, but he was able to take hold of the narrative and say, look, we're building, bear with us. And he could bring people with him. And I think that's what this Wales team needs more than anything, really. He's just someone who's going to be in front of the media and saying, yes, things are bad, but they will get better. And someone who can just sort of convey that and you sort of trust what they're saying, which is what I think every time Gatland spoke since the World Cup, I've just was more and more convinced that he didn't believe what he was saying himself. And when you get to that point, then it doesn't really matter what a coach says or does on the field. You know, you've lost it. So I think that's going to be a big thing for Jockey. Like I said, he's a very good technical coach, very good at first phase moves. And let's be fair, after that stat Warburton put out on ITV, on BBC coverage in the Italy game where we made 1 meter from 14 first phase opportunities or whatever, that's not good enough for the second league division teams. Even they can run a set phase move. Can't win the line out, but we can run the move if we're allowed the ball. That's where we are really. We just need someone to make us think, oh no, we can see what's going on. We can see some positives.
It's about hope
because
as well, isn't it?
We were struggling by the autumn.
It's about hope as well. I think Abby Tierney said, didn't she, in that press conference last week, she said, we just hope to bring back a little bit of hope and positivity to Welsh Rugby, and that's what's been lacking. And Sheratt has got, good experience in this, isn't he? As you well know, Ollie, that story where he came in and it's, well, depending on who you ask, it changes, doesn't it, the amount of players and coaches, but apparently it was it 8 players, 3 coaches. He took Cardiff from a low ebb and he talked about this in his press conference. So he's been in this situation before. It's a big job for him, but it's no lose, really, because no one's expecting us to win. And if he does, make us play well and dare I say win a game, then his reputation has rocketed.
And I think the players coming into training today will have come in with a slightly different mindset, and to just have some different voices in training. I think it'll, it would have been complete doom and gloom. Obviously the pressure's still on, but just having some different voices for a lot of the players, people they know, I think will have a positive impact, and certainly over the next 3 weeks it will. Yeah,
fresh voices. Maybe that's what's needed. New ideas, fresh voices.
I bet his wife is sitting there going, and he's got I've got a new job, love. She's going, can you just have like a decent job, instead of having to drag everybody up and pull them up by can we not just like start in the middle with somebody like mediocre? Why do we have to do that all the time? Right, let's have a little look ahead then. Let's look into the crystal ball, the oval crystal ball, and look at the future. So there's a number of names that have been thrown around and battered about and all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to have a little kind of review of where we think those names are. So, Jamie, you've got probably one of the front runners. You've got Franco Smith. So what do you make of him, and why would he be a good fit for Wales?
Okay, I'll tell you why he'd be a good fit. So he's South African, as we know, but he does have a connection to Welsh Rugby. He played for Newport, so he'll understand the politics of self-interest and tribalism that's in Welsh Rugby, and it hasn't changed, let's be honest. His son, Franco Jr., was born in Newport, so he has a connection to Welsh Rugby. That's the first thing. When you actually look at his CV, it is pretty impressive, actually. So he coached Benetton before they joined the Pro 12, and he was quite successful there, actually. So he won 2 championship titles. He won a Coppa Italia trophy, and he won an Italian Super Cup. And then he goes to the Cheetahs and he leads them to 2 Currie Cup titles in 2016 and 2019. He joined Glasgow in 2022. And to be fair, at this point, mind the club were at a low ebb. It didn't work out with Danny Wilson. They got absolutely humiliated by Leinster, if you remember, in that quarterfinal. They put like 70-odd plus points on them. The Scottish rugby media and the supporters are largely unimpressed by this appointment. Apparently, that only 2 reporters turned up in the press conference to unveil Franco Smith. This is true. It's a true story. Only 2 reporters. They were not impressed by this appointment. And look what he's done with them. He's completely turned them around. URC champions, beating the Bulls and Loftus Fairfield to come back from 30-0 down to win 21-16. And of course, they beat Munster in that semi-final, and he's named URC Coach of the Year. So his success at Glasgow is not for debate. In terms of international coaching, he spent time as an assistant with South Africa, didn't he, between 2017 and 2018. But I want to focus on his time with Italy because this is a sticking point with a lot of people. So people are pointing out that he didn't win a game when he was coaching Italy, and he took charge of them for 2 Six Nations campaigns, and it is factually correct to say that he didn't win a game. However, when you actually speak to Italian rugby fans, they'll tell you that he laid the foundations for the success that Italy are having now. So these are just some of the players that Franco Smith brought through when he was Italy coach, right? He brought through the captain, Michel Lamaro. He brought through Paolo Garbisi, Monty Ione, Brex, Stephen Varney, and Daniel Fischetti. So these have been really critical and quality players for Italy. So we know he can bring through young talent, and I believe he'll have the ability to do it for Wales. Also, the other important thing as well, did you see that interview before the Dragons game with Lauren Jenkins? He is dropping massive hints that he wants the Wales job. So with the other candidates, perhaps we don't actually know at the moment if they actually want the job. Franco Smith wants the job. I'm telling you, I've watched that interview several times. That was a come and get me plea. He's already publicly said that he wants to coach international rugby again. And he told reporters last week, and I quote, he was honoured to be linked to the Wales job. He wants to be coach. He's a strong candidate. And I think if he were whittling it down to the final 2, the shortlist, Franco Smith would have to be in the top 2. He's a brilliant coach. He's a winner. He's won trophies. He's developed talent. We saw that with Italy. I think he's a very, very good candidate for the Welsh job.
Okay. So my only balance on that is when you're in a club side, you can kind of buy in who you want. When you're a national coach, you get given, these are the players you can select from. So it is a little bit different on that. And, like you said, at Italy, that is the one sticking point at Italy. I mean, how long was he there? Was he there 3 years?
He was there for about 2 years. He took over 2 Six Nations campaigns, and then he got sort of moved upstairs then to a performance director. But the point I'm trying to make is he brought through all these players now, the key members of the Italian squad. That's what he can do with Wales. He's got a track record of winning and developing young players. And like I said, if you speak to any Italian rugby fan, they'll tell you that they owe a lot to Franco Smith because he's laid the foundations. So a long-term project, a long-term coach, I think Franco Smith is a very strong candidate.
On Harley, you were gonna
just saying I want to jump on the sort of back in a bit is the thing, because we all know Italy was a long-term project. The thing that a lot of people praise Franco Smith for was the style of play. He instilled this sort of style that, yes, they didn't pick up results, but it laid the foundations for an attacking plan, which then Kieran Crowley doubled down on with the attack, no kicking game. Now Casada's come in and he's given them this kicking game. And that was from a team with very low confidence, low resources. The WRU have a lot more resources to pump it. They don't pump it into the pro sides, but they pump it into Team Wales. So if he needs an extra kicking coach, they can go and get one. He's got the scheme. I mean, I would say Conor O'Shea started this whole production line, start with the pathways, but Franco Smith built on it. And again, you look at it, I think the head coach role was very important. I think the director of rugby, that's probably going to be the more important one. So actually having someone like Franco Smith who's very good with the national team, bringing people through, and then you get someone who's, like we get onto spoiler into going into my one, you get someone who's putting all the work and all the pathways in behind it, make sure that he's got the players to bring through. That for me is the more interesting appointment.
Well, you definitely get to go last because you got the wild card for applying last to the message. So my candidate could almost fit into both roles as well, simply because that's the kind of stuff that he's doing at the minute. So my candidate is Simon Easterby, someone that I know was really close to signing for the Scarlets. Well, had signed for the Scarlets, as far as I'm told, but there was a clause that said, or there was a contract in front of him ready to sign, but there was a clause in that contract that said if he got offered the senior role at Ireland, then he would stay and blah 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 blah, and then time ran out for the Scarlets, sort of thing. So we know he wants to come home. We know, he lives in Wales. He commutes to Ireland. He cares passionately about Welsh rugby. He's obviously got connections with Scarlets, and he maintains those connections quite often. He was at the Ospreys on Friday night watching Leinster. So, he's a very technically minded person. He knows how to set up a team based on what he's got. He knows how to evolve a team. He knows how to grow the pathway. He's been in a system that has developed the world's #1 team and consistently delivered. So the only drawback on that is that they haven't delivered at a World Cup, but the style of rugby that they play in is pretty much where we need to be. So I'd be happy with Easterby in either of those roles, because I think he'd do a cracking job in as a coach. Our front five platform would significantly improve. Our back row would be unleashed to do some damage, and he would. This is the other good thing that he does, is he can identify good coaches. We've seen that with some of the people he's brought into Ireland, where he can identify we need to improve on this, bring that person in. That's how that works. So I think he's got a really good CV, but we'd be fool if he came there and said, "Okay, I'm interested." We'd be foolishly not to offer him something on that.
Can I push back then? Because you push back on my suggestion.
Yeah, go on, mate.
Just to play devil's advocate, because I do actually think Franco Smith and Simon Easterby are the top two candidates. What has he won as a head coach? So I've given you examples of trophies that Franco Smith won in his career. What has Simon Easterby won so far as a head coach?
So as a head coach, he brought the Scarlets from, I think it was 10th. The season he took over at the Scarlets, I think we were 10th or 8th, 9th, 10th. So we're around there. When he finished with the Scarlets and he handed over to Nigel Davis, we were regularly third, fourth, that kind of end of the table. So
he hasn't won anything as a head coach.
He hasn't won anything, but he's grown as a coach. His actual head coaching time was a long time ago, and I think this is the thing that we need to bear in mind is coaches learn. We talk about Franco Smith. He'll have gone to Italy. He'd have done stuff there. He'd have learned from that. He'd have taken that on. He's gone to Glasgow. He's put stuff in place that's worked really well, and he's learned as a coach, and he's grown as a coach, and now he's looking for that next place to go on to. Same as Easterby. Easterby has been that number 2, but he's the man that delivers the technical stuff day in, day out. And we'll see how good they are through the rest of the Six Nations. What I've been told by a couple of Irish supporters, I've been told 2 things by Irish supporters today on social media, so everything comes with a bag and a half of salt. But the one thing I've been told is that they're a little bit more scared of Wales now than they were last week. There's a little bit of bounce back in the national team that they're a little bit worried about for this weekend. And 2, stay away from Easterby because he's theirs.
But does he want the job though, Lee? That's the thing, because when you read, people's comments, particularly from the Irish media, they're saying stuff like, well, why the hell would he want to take the Wales job when he's, in line to take over from Andy Farrell when his contract runs out in 2027? I think Easterby is the next in line. Some say Ronan O'Gara, but apparently they are grooming him to be head coach of Ireland. Also, Rhys Patchell, who I spoke to you about, he was on Radio 5 Live on the weekend, and he was saying, I would be very surprised if Simon wanted that job. And he's good mates with Easterby. So we know that Franco Smith is dropping hints like hell that he wants that Wales job, but does Easterby really want it? That's the question, isn't it?
And you'd be stupid to be in a job, to be in that head coach role and going, oh, actually, no, I want to go and play for the opposition. You've got to be realistic about what he says in public and all of that kind of stuff. My I mean, this has gone back 2 or 3 years now anyway, that he was ready to come home 2 or 3 years ago. But I say stuff changes, and it may have changed him, but I'd still say, for me, the ideal double ticket would be East to be as director with Franco as coach. And I think from there, we will build a strong base in all areas. All teams will benefit for the next 10, 15, 20 odd years. And I think that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, he's a strong candidate. I was just playing devil's advocate there with you, that's all.
I know you were, Tim. I know you were.
I do like
So,
70s to be a lot.
Let's play devil's advocate a little bit more with Nick's choice. So all yours, Nick. The floor is yours. Who's your candidate for replacing?
Just if I could go before I actually mention my candidate, I just want to put to bed, in my view, this idea that people don't want this job. I think coaches will be ambitious. Many coaches want to coach internationally. The fact that the opportunities to coach internationally don't come around very often. Most countries have a coach for a World Cup cycle. So it's unlikely there's going to be another opportunity to coach another international team until after the next World Cup. And coaches are ambitious, as we've alluded to already. Coaches want to be coached at the very highest level to test themselves, and that's good. So, and I think this is a long-term project as well. So I'm going to when I mention my candidates, I think that's a concern of mine with this candidate, but I'll come to that in a minute. And also, there's not many people in many careers can turn down a salary that is probably twice of what they're on at the moment, because the Welsh Rugby Union, for all their faults, and have often paid an awful lot of money to their coaches. So that's all in the favour of getting a quality coach, or at least being able to interview quality coaches, because there will be people interested. Unfortunately, my coach has a very strong CV. Michael Checker has coached internationally successfully to a certain degree with Australia and obviously with Argentina. Took them to the semi-final of the last World Cup. Has been with Leicester this year. I don't think he's done that badly, but apparently he's not staying. He's not gone down particularly well from what I hear with Leicester fans. My biggest problem with Checker is I don't think he's in it for the long term. I think if you wanted an interim sort of 2-year coach to get us to the quarterfinals of the next World Cup, which is only 2 years away, he might well do a job for us. I think we need to be a little bit more long term in our views and look at this as a 4-6 year project. And that's why I want to see somebody different being appointed. And also, I don't think he's a particularly nice man. I don't know if we're going to be mentioning the other Australian, but we've had enough of people who are a liability in interviews and in the selections of people. We need somebody who's a bit savvy, who's a little bit more younger and can be, not saying stupid stuff and not appointed stupid people to the team when it was quite obvious, and then claiming that, I didn't realize it'd be uproar. Let's have somebody who's got a little bit more switched on. So even though I've told Michael Checker, I am not in favour of Michael Checker at all. The first candidates, I would be more than happy in either of those. I have a preference, if I'm allowed to say at this point.
Go on there. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
My preference is Franco Smith. I think I like the style of rugby that Glasgow play. They have the basics right. They're good, strong lineouts. Obviously, the scrum is fine. The defence is very strong, as we saw against the Dragons. And also, they play a very good brand of rugby, the attack. So they're an all-court team, the Glasgow. I understand coaching is like playing, is a big step up from club rugby, regional rugby to international. Fully get that. But I think, as you've mentioned, he will have learned from his Italy experience. And given where Wales are, they can only probably drop one more place. I'm confident that we might go below Japan. But after that, the only way is up. And what an opportunity for a coach to get us back to the top 5, 6 over the next 4, 6 years. I'd be really excited. And the £500,000 a year they might give me to do that would be the icing on the cake.
give me $500,000 a year, and I'd make damn sure that we do it. So Harley, so you were last onto the WhatsApp group this morning when we said who wants to take various coaches. So you get the wild cards, you get all the crazy people that have been banded around on social media and various places. So who else are people suggesting would be a good fit?
There's a couple of people, one including someone I suggested myself in Stuart Lancaster, not necessarily popular, former England player and coach, but was also very successful at Leinster, and he's left a lot of legacy. And I was thinking of him more for that director of rugby role, because from what I understand, that's more about the bigger picture and your grand plan. So actually, if you've got some guy who's doing a grand plan, maybe you can get a Michael Checker in up until the World Cup. And I say, this is what I want you to focus on. I just want you to give us, I don't know, just to be absolute bastards. That's all we care about, is make them a horrible team to play against. And then you bring in a guy who's got a little bit more of an attacking mindset, and you layer that on top, and you just bring these different layers. And then also you put up an all-round team.
Can you think of anybody who's good attack coach?
Yeah, Frank Smith.
Yeah.
So another name that's been sort of bandied around is Brad Moore, former Scarlets. My same reservation is what I have with Easterby. We've appointed Scarlets head coaches and coaches to the top job before. It's not gone very well. Same with, whenever we appoint the regional coach, the priorism of the regions just doesn't work. One name that has come up sort of in hushed tones, because he's just sort of having a very steady mid-table career in Japanese top one, is Dave Rennie. So he was, when Pivac was announced, he was probably the main guy to go up against him. So obviously Glasgow had won the Pro 14 the year before under Dave Rennie, before Pivac did. And everyone thought he got sort of just unfairly booted out in Australia when they weren't doing particularly badly, just for the sake of getting Eddie Jones in. I quite rate him as a coach. I think he's pretty good. He's got reasonable all-round, he appreciates having an all-round game in his sides. And what would be quite interesting if he brought his attack coach, Mike Blair, who I rate as an incredibly good attack coach. Not so good head coach, but fantastic attack coach. So that would be an interesting sort of double ticket. And then Lee seems to want Mr. Blobby because let's be fair, some fat man in a suit is probably an upgrade, to be fair.
Exactly.
And then the other name is Eddie Jones,
just...
which, let's be fair, I don't think he'd want to do that job. And I don't think there's anyone in Wales who'd want him after a lot of the comments he said.
It kind of shows that there is a lot of interest and there is a lot of people that would work in it. And then you also have one that you haven't mentioned, Harley, is Sheratt actually staying.
You can all fuck off. It's not happening.
Yeah. I figured you might say that. So it's going to be interesting. I don't actually envisage that we'll make an appointment until after the summer. I don't think that there's going to be any great rush. I think if a team of 4 coaches takes the Wales squad to Japan,
yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. We've tried it before and it was an absolute disaster. When what's his name from Pontypridd? There was a Pontypridd coach and a Swansea coach.
Oh, it would have been Chief.
Yeah, and Chief went as well, and it was just an absolute nightmare. And everyone ended up fighting each other. It was crazy.
Just to point out something that Harley
took
said.
A Sam Davis drop goal to save face.
Yeah.
Just to pick up on what Harley said, man, and it's a really important point. This actually, we do need a director of rugby in post, and the head coach should be employed by the director of rugby, not Abby Tierney, because I think it's been pretty clear now that she has very limited rugby knowledge. She's even admitted that herself. The WR needs to appoint a director of rugby as soon as possible, and he or she should be the one to appoint the Wales head coach. It should be their remit, not Abby Tierney's. I think that's really important to get a director of rugby in place.
And that's where maybe Lancaster might come in for a role like that. And that relationship as well, without being too cozy, needs to be strong between the head coach and the director of rugby, because if they're you know hammer and tongs against each other, that's not going to work at all. So I totally agree that the director of rugby, even if they're not in place, needs to have a very prominent place in the appointment process, and so that knowing that they can work with a new head coach moving forward.
I'm going to throw our names into the hat, boys. I'm going to have a word with the WRU and say that us four will do the director of rugby between us, and I think it would be amazing on that.
As long as I don't have to be in Wales 5 days a week. If I can just come up for weekends, that'd be great. And I'll still be here more often than Gat.
Yeah, can I spend 6 months of the year in New Zealand, please? Right, okay, let's quickly move on then to the under-20s. So, Nick, you were going to give us an update on the under-20s.
Yeah, they had a win out in Italy, which which is positive, obviously. First home game of their season, playing that game in Newport. So it'll be interesting to see hopefully they get a good crowd there, and it'll be a real test for them, because everything we're going to probably say when we come to talk about maybe this Saturday's game, the Irish teams, to me, have a very clear way of playing, a very clear system, and all the moves and the pods and so on, they're ingrained into them from a schoolboy age. So it's a very tough test, but I'm hoping that Wales can respond to that. They've certainly got some very talented youngsters. So the idea that there isn't talent in Wales, and you can knock that on the head. It's about how best we develop those pathways and make sure that they actually can become real, true, well, hopefully world-class internationals in the next 5-6 years.
Okay. Let's quickly move on then and have a look at last weekend's games. So, given the success of the 2-minute timer last week, okay, I'm going to up it 30 seconds. So you've got 2.5 minutes on the timer, to talk about your game and just your game and how it went and all of that kind of stuff. So, Nick, Ospreys were first, Friday night, 2.5 minutes, on your marks, get set, go.
Yeah, it was a good game. Obviously, you could argue it was Leinster's third team. They had Snyman on the bench, and after plugging the visit of Geordie Barrett, he didn't even come across. Frightened by the prospect of facing Keith from Neath. What they are is a very well coached side. Still a lot of quality there. I think that Slimani coming back from the French squad, and the loose head Jack Boyle, who's a young lad, but he really they both had strong games, put a lot of pressure on the Ospreys scrum, and possibly losing Sam Parry through illness on the morning of the game didn't help the Ospreys. Not that Ethan Lewis had a bad game, but I think Sam Parry's experience might have helped. I think really that little bit of those nudges that they were able to get at scrum time probably were the difference in the end between the two teams, where in the past the Ospreys at least would have had parity. Those few penalties against them probably did for us in the end. I really enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the spirit the Ospreys showed. They had a chance right at the very end. They were a bit unlucky in that they lost both the outside halves who were used to playing outside half just before the opportunity to kick to the corner. Leinster got some really good players still, even with that sort of team out. Max Deegan's a very experienced back row. Luke McGrath and Kieran Frawley, I thought, played all right, played well in the half-back positions, led their team. Some very, very talented youngsters. I thought Morgan Morris, Justin Tipperick as usual. And I think Daniel Kasende has been a really good pickup for us. He's looking to be a decent, very decent winger who gives you go forward. But for me, the absolute star of the game is Harry Deeves. He's not a big man, but his willingness to run hard and to cross the gain line, and his overall skills, his left-footed kick to touch was brilliant. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I think it really does show where the Ospreys are. They're not a bad team, but the lack of accuracy, as Matt Jones referred to in his after-match report, let us down at times, and those are definitely work-ons if we want to further improve.
So that's your time up, mate. That's your time up. You were 4 seconds over on that.
Apologies.
But balancing that on last week, yeah, I think that was good. Cool. Thank you for that, Nick. So next up was Scarlett. This is not going to take me 2.5 minutes, trust me. Right.
You were very confident of the win as well last week, wasn't you, Lee? You were very
Do you know, mate,
confident.
I was, and I'm talking into my phone. I don't need to talk into my phone at all. I was, and there's a couple of bits on that game that really annoyed me. I think first of all, we need to up our intensity in the forwards when we come to these games. We need to stamp our authority on it and not allow ourselves to get bullied off it. Second point now was a referee and an absolute howler. And I've said this before. It's not just the referee; it's the touch judges and the TMO. There were so many things that should have been pulled back by the TMO, and just none of it. What you've all seen the video that I've shared on socials, which was blindingly obvious. Yeah, 2 people texted me. Did you see that? While the game was in, if we can see it, and the ref is standing 6 foot away, how is the ref not seeing that? That video's had 100,000 views. That had, it had 90. This morning it had 80,000 views. So this evening it's got over 100,000 views. So I think if would the referee decisions made any difference? We would have been more competitive at rucks. We would have been, we got taken out of rucks. We getting 10, 15 meters back and all of this kind of stuff. Forward passes were iffy at best. And it just, the heads dropped. And I think what we missed was Josh McLeod, both around the park and as a leader on the pitch. I don't think there was any great leadership on the pitch to go, hang on a second, ref. Let's have a look at this, because that was ridiculous. And just really getting the boys together and going, all right, you're up against this now, and we've got to do something. So I'm not too disappointed. I think the only disappointing bit for me was Johan Lloyd had a bit of a nightmare, and Charlie Titcombe didn't come on a bit sooner. I think he's part of the future of the club, and we have to at some point bite that bullet and go, okay, you're going to get a bit of game time, because at the minute we're giving him 5-10 minutes. I think he had about 10 minutes at the end where the game was gone. So it is what it is. It was disappointing, but we move on, and that is me done. See, it's like I practiced that, Nick. Don't make none of this 4 seconds over, man. That was on the bun. Right. Harley, you're up next with Cardiff. On your marks, set, go.
Right, I'm going to use my first few seconds to point out we've only got an extra 30 seconds because Lee couldn't keep the time last week. Anyway, going through. So go away, tricky wind. Cardiff didn't manage it, so we ended up going 19-0 down, made it all the way up to 19-all. And then straight after scoring that equalising try, we popped up the kick because our heads just weren't focused. And it was a bit like every game. Loads of people telling me about the ref with that Connacht fourth third try. They pointed out, oh, well, the maul was stopped for ages. I went, yeah, but the point was we turned over a cheap ruck because we didn't resource it properly, because we were just panicking and shipping the ball on. And then we gave away 2 very soft penalties getting to the corner. We need more composed. That doesn't happen. We don't have to worry about the referee coming in. Similar to the last breakdown, we shouldn't be chasing the game in the last minute. That said, I thought it was a much better performance than the Challenge Cup ones, which means hopefully 3rd time's the charm when the game really matters. What I would say, though, is we saw a fantastic bit of what Jockey might bring to Wales, which is the Ray Lilo try, where they do a tap and go, crash it up. Mulder calls all the forwards round to the left and then flashes the ball right and goes where the defence has got, because defence have all gone round to the big points. And I think that's the exact sort of thing. That's the sort of thing we're going to need against teams like Ireland, who will match us on the game line. Yeah, that's me done easily.
Oh my word! So you've got 1 minute and 1 second left on the clock there, Harley. So that all goes over to Jamie. I mean, Jamie, do you really want to talk for 3.5 minutes on the Dragons, or not?
Not really, no. I'll just say result as expected, the end. Move on. No,
I didn't even get a chance to press go, Jake. Right,
no,
go.
I can't do that. Result as expected. When the team sheets were released on Friday, I think we all saw that Glasgow team and how strong it was. They had 5 of their Scottish internationals released back from the Scotland camp. It was obvious before kick-off they were at least 25, 30 points better than that Dragons team. I thought we played some good rugby in the first half. I thought we did well to stay in the fight. When it looked like Glasgow would run away with it, we hung in there. Second half was a very different story, obviously. Glasgow just had too much for us. Dragons wilted away as the game wore on. Didn't score a single point in the second half. Didn't really fire a shot, but that was more down to Glasgow's class and power more than anything else. Defence was disappointing. It is noticeable since Philo has been moved off defence coach and become head coach, our defence has really suffered. There were some soft tries conceded in that game. There were some nice tries, but some of them were quite soft. I mean, in terms of positives, Hugh Anderson was by far our best player. Really like the look of this kid. Very talented. Showed some lovely touches. Worked hard in defence. Shane Lewis-Hughes and Ivan Owen, industrious as ever. Scott Williams came off the bench, made his Dragons debut. He was signed on permit from Pontypool. I thought he carried well. Sounds like Philo's going to bring him into the team a little bit more throughout the rest of the season, which I think is good, just for experience. But look, on the whole, result as expected. As I said, when you look at the budget, the league positions, can't fault the effort and the spirit of this Dragons team, but it's not enough against Glasgow, and we just haven't got the resources to be competing with them. This is a paper-thin squad, and at the moment we got 18 players out through injury and international call-ups. And for a paper-thin squad like the Dragons have got, they can't cope with it. And that's just how it is. And unfortunately, this situation won't change throughout the season. It is what it is. We probably are going to finish last, but there's nothing we can do about it now. So we just have to keep plodding on, and hopefully we'll pick up a win somewhere, but I can't see it. So disappointing, but ironically, probably the best performance Dragons have put in this year, I would say.
Well, at half time, you were, knocking on the door at half time, weren't you?
Well, we went 10-0 up, but I think everyone knew that was never going to last. It was obvious that Glasgow were going to come out firing in the second half. They had a much stronger team, stronger bench. We just wilted away in our second half. We just didn't have the quality to come off the bench. We don't have any game changers. We don't have any ball carriers. We don't really have anyone turning over the ball. But that's the squad that we got at the moment. Like I say, it's not going to change this season. Now we've been hit really, really hard by injury. This is the squad we got. So what can you do? You can praise the effort, but against teams like Glasgow, with the budget and resources far greater now, it's not enough, is it? Stuff at the moment, stuff at the bottom. But that's how it is.
I'd like to check in. Sorry. I was going to say, I thought Harry Wilson actually started to look like he was showing some promise as well. He seemed good when I was sort of easing in and out of consciousness because I'm getting a call. The real worst thing about the Dragons is they should have either scored a conversion or Glasgow should have missed a conversion, because it would have meant that I got closest to prediction and not Lee, who was bang on. That is really the worst thing Dragons have done all season.
I was bang on with my Cardiff score, though. I said Connacht by 5. Did you notice that?
Yeah, no. And again, bugger, because I was off by 1 because of 6.
Just a general.
Again, I was hoping one of them would have scored a conversion.
Just a general question about where Welsh Rugby is. Do you think we've become a bit complacent in the sense that if we're plucky losers, that's good enough? I think certainly Ospreys and Cardiff probably should and could have won those games. I was disappointed with the Scarlets. I'll be honest with you, Lee. I thought
there's an Ospreys fan disappointed.
No, let me just give you some evidence for that. You have a pack which has been which is non-Welsh qualified, and I thought you were absolutely taken apart in up front, and that for me was very disappointing. I understand why the Scarlets. I'm not criticising Scarlets for doing that, but for them, I didn't think they really turned up, and for they made some of the Munster pack look world beaters, and you've got on paper some really good players in your pack. Non-Welsh qualified, and I just didn't think they turned up.
Yeah, it's done.
Simple as that, really.
we move on. It's
and it gives me no pleasure to say that.
You liar, Nick. You love to say that. You love to say that to me.
Nick, to counter your point, yes, Cardiff should have won that game. It's a game they should be winning if they want to have aspirations of being better.
I'm not, as I say, I think there's a mindset issue. We've got so used to losing that when the games we're in, I think we should. I was disappointed in the end that the Ospreys didn't win. I enjoyed the experience, I enjoyed the game, but Ospreys should have just done enough to win that game.
Anyway, we're going to put that to bed because Jamie's added 2.5 minutes plus Harley's minute, and then we're still going on. So yeah, we got 2 weeks now until the next URC.
Right.
Is it
Yeah.
2 weeks? Yeah, it's 2 weeks, isn't it? Yeah. And then big game for that's the game for the Dragons, then, isn't it, James? It's zebra away, isn't it?
I don't think it is anymore. When you look at the gap, Dragons are on 8 points at the bottom and Zebra on 20 because they had an excellent win away at Edinburgh.
Yeah.
They've really improved. And to be fair, me and Lee have been saying quite regular about Zebra's improvement, haven't we?
Yeah.
And good on them. I'm really pleased. This is a team that doesn't know what his future is at the moment. Don't know where they're going to be playing. They've played really well for adversity, so good on them. But I think we're fucked now anyway. We're at the bottom, and that's where we're staying.
Okay. 4 minutes. That's 4 minutes for Jamie.
I didn't know you were still adding on time. Okay, fine.
Right. Okay. So if you are liking what you're hearing and seeing, then do give us a rate and a subscribe on whichever channel you are watching or listening to us on. It does make a massive difference. And every now and again, somebody makes a comment that makes you just feel super happy. I passed it on to Gavin today from the Dragons. So we published the Dragons one last night. And somebody who doesn't want to be named because they're quite shy and they don't usually comment, but they were really kind about Gav, and it does make you feel a little bit kind of like soppy. Oh, that's nice. That's a really nice thing for somebody to say. So to pass it on to Gav was quite nice on that. So yes, do give us a rate and a subscribe by all means. We'd like that. So okay, let's move on and wrap up then with Wales Island this week. So what are we expecting? What kind of team are we expecting to have out? What kind of game are we expecting? And then we'll do predictions. So, Nick, let's get you kind of who are you hoping is going to be in the side this week?
It's a challenge, isn't it? But it's not a challenge like playing South Africa, so that Ireland don't bring that physicality that, say, South Africa would. But obviously, they're one of the best 4 or 5 teams in the world. And probably odds-on favourites to win the Grand Slam. So I'm just hoping that they put up a performance. We show a little bit more in attack. I personally would like to make a few changes, and I would be Cardiff-centric or past Cardiff players involved in that because he's had so little time. So I certainly would expect to see Teddy Williams to come in as in the second row. Obviously, David Jenkins will be back there. And if they want to put Azarati at tight head, that's fine by me as well. I'd expect Anscombe to start. And given what has been said, I would expect Ben Thomas, since he's played with Max Llewellyn, to go back to 12 and Max Llewellyn starts at 13. Yeah, and I think what will be interesting for me as an Osprey fan will be what happens to Dan Edwards. Does he keep his place on the bench? And he's brought into international rugby sensibly and slowly, which was okay. Or I'm not sure. I'd be a bit concerned if he doesn't make the 23 at all, and Jared Evans comes into the 23. So yeah, just hoping for a better game, hoping for more shape in attack. But obviously, totally understand it's very limited time. Jockey and the other coaches will have in readiness for Saturday.
Okay, so Jamie, obviously Liam Williams left the squad as well, injured, so we don't have an out-and-out fullback if we're going to class Tom Rogers as a wing. And Hathaway as a wing. They've both played significant amounts of rugby at fullback, but are classed as wings. So are you thinking Anscombe comes in at fullback, or what are you expecting to happen this week?
Do you know, I was thinking about that. If you want a left field choice at fullback, you put Anscombe there and you start Jared Evans at 10. Now that would be risky, but that would not surprise me. We know Matt Sheratt's a big fan of Jared Evans, played really good rugby under him at Cardiff. Anscombe at fullback, that's a good option. I personally think he'll stick with Blair Murray at fullback. I think he'll go Adams, Murray and Tom Rogers. I tell you what I don't want to see. I don't want to see Ben Thomas at 10. And I finally hope that Sheratt doesn't want to see that either. I agree with Nick. I think he will go Llewellyn in the centre along with Ben Thomas. And I think the halfbacks will be Thomas Williams, Gareth Anscombe. I expect to see Ellis Bevan on the subs bench instead of Rodri. I don't think Rodri has done anything wrong. I think he's been pretty good. But I do think because he knows Ellis Bevan, he's worked with him, I think you'll have Ellis Bevan on the bench. I won't be surprised. I think you'll have Teddy Williams starting. He should be starting.
Yeah.
I said last week, Will Rowlands, I'm afraid, very poor, has been for a while. So I'm all in favour of Teddy Williams starting. And I'm not really bothered about the whole Cardiff bias thing. It's obvious that Sheratt is going to go that way because these are the players he knows. It's common sense. So if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. But all I want to see from Wales, I just want to see an attacking shape. I want to see an identity in this team because there's no identity. There's no attacking shape. We are absolutely toothless. So if Sheratt can make us watchable, because that would be a start, bit of identity, an attacking shape, and actually decent to watch and a bit of hope, that's fine by me. I'm not expecting much, but just give us some bloody hope and make us watchable. And let's fire some shots in attack and not be so bloody lateral. You know, because that's what we've been under Gatland and Howley. He hasn't been good enough. So I'm actually looking forward to this game. I was dreading it before, but now Sheratt's coming in. You know, the players are coming in, the players he's called up. I'm really intrigued by it. I think we could give Ireland a game. You know, I'm not saying we're winning. Make that clear now. I don't think we will win. But I think we can give Ireland a good game. You know, there is the new manager bounce. I know that's fake football, but, you know, I do think it could happen. They shouldn't underestimate this Ireland. They shouldn't underestimate this.
They could beat us for
Well,
12.
so that's
Gone to their, some of their media.
Hey?
Yeah, off
Some
the
of their
ball.
media have been was suggesting that they if they 12 if they only had 12 on the field because they
Off the ball, a
yeah,
bunch of
that's off the
twats. They
ball.
always have been. They always have been.
And
No, they
I was
are.
too
They're
polite to
clickbait
say. I was too
merchants.
polite to say that.
No, they're a bunch of twats. They're clickbait merchants. They always do this whenever we
I
play
know.
them. They're dreadful.
Yeah.
And I'll be fair, we've had quite a lot of comments from Irish supporters saying just that, Jamie. You know,
It's
they're
clickbait.
not.
It's
Yeah,
done for
they're not
clicks.
representative. And fair play to them. It's worked because that particular bit of the pod has gone mental. So I'm going to say, up yours, Ireland. I reckon we can take you with 12. So there, let's see that one go mad. Harley, your thoughts on this weekend?
It's been quite interesting. Me and Hugh have been sort of having a bit of chat behind the scenes. He's sort of going for get as many former Cardiff and Gloucester players in. I sort of gone a little bit away from that, but there's a lot of players. So like the Jared Evans 10, Gareth Anscombe 15 is something that he's done. You know, that's what we won basis of our Challenge Cup campaign that we won in 2018. He loves having a couple, you know, preferably two. If he can get a third playmaker in as well, that's great. Wings are quite interesting. So Jockey has a very strong preference for one sort of more physical power winger like your Josh Adams, and then more of a speedster. So what we might see is Adams actually move over to the right wing and then have, I don't really know who's the quickest of the remaining wingers. It is probably Blair Murray. Say by push. I mean, Ellis Meese, all right, but again, he's still quite inexperienced. But him or Tom Rogers equally could have fulfilled that sort of power winger role. The interesting one for us is the bench that we discussed on the bench is would Sheratt go 6-2 for us? Because we do have players like Max Welling who can do 12-13. Wing and a push, I think you could do on an international level, and then you have with Joe Roberts on the bench who can do 13. Again, not really wing, but could do wing. I do think I think if we do go 6-2, Dan Edwards misses it. Unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I do think, you know, a lot of people I'm talking to were thinking that the Japan tour was going to be his time. You know, we all thought, you know, he was going to go in that summer squad, and they thought he was going to be probably Anscombe, you know, with maybe Ben Thomas as emergency cover at 10. So I think we go with that. I think he's going to go down that road. I don't think he's going to bring Anzarati in to start, because I do think one thing that has worked well is the matching of the front rows. Just for sort of like height and time. I think having Smithy and Anzarati, although it's our shortest and lightest front row, they seem to scrummage quite well as a unit. And similar with Thomas Lloyd and Thomas. Thomas Lloyd Thomas does sound like a Welsh international from the 1980s, Mike. I think that's probably how we're going to go. I do think Teddy Williams comes in, not necessarily as a captain, but as a leader. Yeah, I think Jack Morgan, as much as I'm not too fussed on him being a captain, I think he'll keep the captaincy because I don't think see him changing that mid-tournament. And I think we'll go from there. And I think what we'll see is a couple of good strike plays if we can get the first phase ball. One thing I do think with Teddy Williams, though, I think he's going to be given license to just keep going up in the air at Ireland's lineouts because it is shaky. I mean, this is, something to write in my own epitaph here, but, their lineout hasn't been great. I think even against England and with we played last week, Scotland, they were running, was it 60%, which is actually worse than ours, which says a lot. I think that's somewhere. And if you can disrupt Ireland at sorts, and if you can mess up the ruck a bit, the thing is, well, you can have both of them and Jack Morgan just going to be given license to just get in the way. And I think even someone like Henry Thomas, I think they'll say is just plow into that ruck, just make it unpleasant. You don't have to go too far. You don't have to worry about line speed. Just make it unpleasant. And I think that's where you're going to be able to stop Ireland from clicking into gear. But I agree with Nick and Jamie and say if we can see something in attack, even if it is just some nice first aid moves, just somewhere where we can see a direction. I mean, the big problem is that Jockey's only here for 3 games, so he could set up a system and it gets thrown out in the next campaign.
He's got to keep it simple.
He's
got to keep it simple because he haven't got the time to implement any,
Well, that's where I think the centres that I want to see is Eddie James and Max Llewellyn, because they're both 6'4", they're both about 16, 17 stone, and having the pair of them running at you is a scary prospect. If you're Bundyaki and you've got Ben Thomas running at you, that's not so scary. Do you know what I mean? When you've got those
if
two,
you're Bundyaki, you're not scared of anyone in international rugby.
If you are there, and you've got one running inside you, one running outside you, that makes you stop and think. So I would like to see a big, powerful. Normally, I do like a bit of creativity in the centres, but I think given where we are and given what we've got to do, both of them are a good 7 to 10 meters on each ball carry. Yeah, and you just go bang 1, bang 2, back to 1, back to 2, and then it kind of takes a bit of pressure off the forwards. What I'm most looking forward to is actually seeing a bit of grunt up front, having a couple of scrums that go a little bit messy, and then there's a little bit of a punch up or whatever, and actually seeing a bit of fight, a bit of literal fight, but also spiritual fight. Robin McBride said that Wales has lost its rugby soul. Yeah. And for me, what he means by that is the enjoyment of playing the game and actually getting stuck into people and having that challenge, laying down the challenge of a physical challenge that we're going to meet you toe to toe and we're going to go at you. And there's an enjoyment in that. There's an enjoyment in having that physical battle and coming out of it and saying, shake your hands and congratulations. Yeah, let's go have a pint, So I think, yes, we have lost some of that, and we need somebody in that pack to take that on and to, a bit like Ken Owens used to, where he used to go on like a bit of a cannonball run and he just bang, 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 and he'd be bouncing off people, but nobody put him down, and, there'd be a bit of oomph. And then you'd have someone like Jake Ball and Almond Jones, big, hefty, meaty guys just picking people
we
up.
We haven't got those guys anymore, though.
But that's what I mean. It's having that attitude of going, do you know what? I'm going to control this game. I'm going to control what happens up front, and I'm going to give absolutely everything I can to make that happen. And I think that's what we need now is to see a little bit of that down and dirty and make it nasty and completely put Ireland off the game. If the game breaks up behind, we've got players that can create and score tries. We know that, that can happen. Give them the platform, give them a platform going forward, and I think we can create stuff behind. The one player that I do want to see I do want to see Wainwright in instead of Faletau. I think
I was going to talk to you about this. The back row would be interesting because Faletau did well against Italy, considering the time he'd been out. I thought he came back, did all right. But Wainwright came on and was excellent.
He was. Yeah.
One option, and it would be harsh on James Botham because he has been a good player. And again, he is a favourite under Matt Sheratt. You could have Wainwright at 6, Morgan at 7, and Talupe Faletau at 8, because that gives you more of a ball carrying option. But will he drop Jack Morgan? Sorry, not Jack Morgan, Botham. I'm not so sure. But if it's a straight swap between Faletau and Wainwright, I'm interested to see who gets the nod.
Yeah, I'd put Wainwright on first and then bring Faletau on to finish the game. I'd
go with Wainwright, Morgan, and Faletau, both of them providing cover across the back row on the bench.
Here's a question: which one of those four gives you the best impact off the bench? Because I can tell you now, it's not Faletau. Faletau's proven he does not come off the bench.
Wainwright,
he's
probably.
One of those players
Wainwright.
But then Wainwright starts well. Yeah, but Wainwright starts well as well. Does, you give Wainwright 80 minutes, and that's what I mean about that grit and that determination. Wainwright will run like a banshee for 80 minutes. Yeah, and I think that sometimes you've got to play the right people for the right game. You go back to Harry Deeves. Harry Deeves isn't an amazingly fantastic player, but against Leinster, he's the kind of player who will get into them and get stuck into them and cause them a whole load of issues. You put him up against Glasgow, who will say, thank you very much, turn the ball over, and he'll be sat on the floor going, where's it gone? Yeah, very different kind of thing. So choosing the right players to compete against Ireland with a right attitude and the right kind of fire in the belly, I think that's key for this one. Yeah. You could almost select it, and I've heard this done in the past, right? Back in the 60s and 70s, where a coach took the players into like a concert hall thing, and the coach sat like halfway back and said, right, sing the national anthem. And he basically put his selection on who wanted that, who sang it the best, who belted it out the most, who wanted that shirt the most. And I kind of get that vibe. Whoever wants this game the most is going to be there. And I think that will only benefit us for this game as it goes. Right, we're running out of time rapidly, gents. So let's quickly run around the table and get some Wales versus Ireland predictions. So two things: I want a score prediction off you, and then I want a crazy thing that might happen in the game prediction off you as well. Okay. So Nick, let's have a score and a crazy prediction off you.
Ireland 44, Wales 19. The crazy thing is Wales will score a try on a strike move from a line-out. A back move.
Wow, and that's as crazy as it gets in your house, isn't it?
No, it'll be crazy because all we look like scoring are from a driving maul and pick up from resulting thing. We've not looked as like breaking the line and running a try in from 30, 40 metres.
Okay, cool. All right. Jamie, your prediction and crazy event?
I'll go Ireland 27, Wales 20. My crazy prediction is that Wales are going to look really good in attack and score tries. And we're all going to be like, oh my God, why wasn't we doing this before? We're going to look a totally different team in attack. That's the crazy part.
Okay, so Nick's is
on the same lines there, Jamie.
Yeah.
Nick's crazy thing is we're going to score from a strike move. Jamie's crazy thing is we're going to score. So, Harley, your predictions.
I'm going to go Ireland by about 20 points because I don't use scorelines. My crazy thing is Ireland are going to have a defend. They're at 5 metre line out on their own line. Teddy Williams is going to go up, steal the ball, bat it down to Evan Lloyd, and he's going to go and score 5 metres. I like what's happened to Cardiff a couple of times this season.
So basically, we're going to score from a 5 metre line.
Again,
this is.
I'm sorry, right? Scoring from the opposition's 5 metre line. That's the crazy thing.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to mess you all up. I'm going to go Wales to win by 1. Just because.
And that's the crazy thing.
You don't need to say anymore.
No, I think my crazy thing will be that we're going to have a try that goes coast to coast. We're going to literally start behind our posts. Somebody's going to screw up a kick and sidestep and go, oh my God, there's a little bit of space, and bang, 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 and then it'll be Blair Murray from the halfway line straight under the posts. Thank you very much. Away we go. So Wales by 1 with, you remember way back, some of you might be too young, but when we were getting battered, I think it was in the early 90s, and we played England at the Old Arms Park, and there was an advert, beat the bull, beat the bull, beat the bull, beat the bull, all this kind of stuff. And then after the game, we won the game 10-9. I was there. If you look at the crowd coming onto the pitch after the game, you can see me in the bottom right-hand corner. I jump over the British Gas hoarding in the Old East Terrace. I get that kind of vibe about this game. I get that.
Yeah.
Backs are against the wall. You know, we've got nothing to lose. We're going to come out. We're going to absolutely give it everything. And in that game, we went into the half-time in that game 10-9 up. We finished that game 10-9, and we spent 79 and a half minutes defending our 22, and England got absolutely nowhere. And it was fantastic.
You might want to consider using your edit facility after this, Lee, because you're either going to come out an absolute hero or with complete egg on your face on that one.
If you've seen the comments on my predictions last week, then yeah, you'll know that stuff really doesn't matter. Right, okay, gents, we will come back and do this all again next week. The vibe feels very different to what it has done for the last couple of seasons. This is our first game as a WRRAP podcast. No, I think we were there for the end of. We started at the end of Pivax, didn't we? So most of our podcast career has been under Gatland. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what the vibe is like next week. So I thank you for your time once again, gentlemen. It has been a pleasure as always. And until next week, enjoy your rugby. All the best.
Cheers.
Ta-ra.
That's